There is a strange habit we humans have, one that reveals more about our impatience than our faith. We imagine that if God truly cared, He would answer quickly, cleanly, and on our preferred timetable. We assume that silence is absence, delay is denial, and waiting is punishment. Yet if we are honest, the deepest transformations of our lives were never rushed. They arrived slowly, often disguised as disappointment, clothed in unanswered prayers, and wrapped in the uneasy gift of time. The miracle you have been waiting for may not be late at all, it may be ripening. Consider how often we mistake God's manner of working for indifference. We knock on heaven's door and expect it to swing open at once, forgetting that we are not knocking on the door of a servant but of a father. A servant responds to commands, a father responds with wisdom. Wisdom, by its very nature, refuses to be hurried. What you call delay may be the careful movement of love, arranging events you cannot yet see, shaping a character strong enough to carry the miracle without being crushed by it. It is easy to believe in miracles when the sea parts immediately, when the chains fall off at the first prayer, when the answer arrives before doubt has time to speak. But faith that only survives instant answers is a fragile thing. It shatters the moment life grows complicated. Real faith is forged in the long corridor between promise and fulfillment, where echoes of prayer bounce back unanswered and the soul learns whether it will cling to hope or surrender to despair. You have waited longer than you thought you could. You have whispered prayers at night that felt as though they vanished into the ceiling. You have watched others receive what you asked for and wondered if your name was somehow crossed off the list. Yet even now your waiting is not wasted. Nothing offered to God in trust ever dissolves into nothingness. Every prayer lingers. Every tear is counted. Every hope is stored like seed in dark soil, invisible but alive. Miracles, contrary to popular imagination, are not interruptions of reality, they are revelations of it. They show us what has been true all along, hidden beneath the surface. And often the greatest miracle is not the sudden change of circumstances, but the quiet reshaping of the one who waits. While you asked for an open door, God may have been widening your shoulders to carry what lies beyond it. While you begged for relief, He may have been teaching you endurance, so that when relief comes, it will not undo you. We are tempted to believe that God's love would spare us from waiting. In truth, love often insists upon it. A loving teacher does not give the final exam answers on the first day of class. A loving parent does not place heavy responsibilities on a child before they are ready. Waiting is not cruelty, it is preparation. And preparation, though uncomfortable, is itself a form of mercy. Think of how often your own plans, had they succeeded too early, would have harmed you. How many things did you once desire with all your heart, only to later thank God they never came? Hindsight is a stern but faithful tutor. It teaches us that timing is not a trivial detail, but the very framework of blessing. A gift given too soon can become a burden. A miracle delivered prematurely may rob you of the growth required to sustain it. God's answers are rarely shouted, they are more often whispered. They come through ordinary days, through small shifts, through conversations that seem accidental, through closed doors that redirect your steps. We want thunder, He gives us a stillness that requires listening. We want spectacle, He gives us substance. The miracle you await may already be unfolding, quietly aligning circumstances while you assume nothing is happening at all. There is also the uncomfortable truth that waiting exposes what we truly love. When the answer is delayed, we discover whether we love God for who He is or merely for what He gives. If the gift becomes the center, disappointment hardens into bitterness. But if God remains the center, even waiting becomes bearable, even meaningful. The heart learns to say, not lightly but sincerely, that trust is possible even without understanding. You may have noticed that some prayers seem to change shape as you wait. What you once asked for with certainty begins to feel less essential. Other desires, previously unnoticed, rise quietly to the surface. This is not faith weakening, it is faith maturing. God is not only answering your prayers, He is refining them. He is teaching you to ask not merely for relief, but for redemption, not merely for comfort, but for truth. Miracles are often misidentified. because they do not arrive wearing the costume we expected. We asked for immediate rescue and received unexpected strength. We asked for escape and received courage to endure. We asked for certainty and received hope. Yet these too are miracles, though they demand more from us than applause. They require participation. They invite us into the work God is doing, rather than offering us a seat to watch it from a distance. Waiting has a way of stripping life down to essentials. It removes the illusion of control and forces us to confront our dependence. This is not a pleasant experience, but it is a necessary one. Dependence is not weakness. It is the proper posture of a created being before its creator. In waiting, pride loosens its grip, and humility quietly takes its place. And humility, though rarely celebrated, is fertile ground for miracles. You may fear that your faith is failing because questions have grown louder. But questions are not the enemy of faith. Indifference is. The very fact that you still ask, still hope, still knock, is evidence that belief remains alive. Faith does not require the absence of doubt. It requires the refusal to let doubt have the final word. And often, it is precisely in this tension that God chooses to act. Do not assume that God's silence means he has turned away. Silence can be a form of intimacy, a shared stillness in which words would be insufficient. Some truths cannot be explained. They must be lived. Some answers cannot be given in advance. They must be discovered step by step. God may be less interested in ending your waiting than in meeting you within it. The miracle you seek is not an isolated event, but part of a larger story. You see a single page, God sees the entire narrative. What feels like delay on your page may be essential foreshadowing in the chapters yet to come. When the miracle arrives, you may look back and realize that the waiting was not empty time, but the very path that led you there. There is also the matter of trust. Trust, unlike optimism, does not depend on favorable outcomes. It rests on the character of the one in whom it is placed. To trust God is to believe that even unanswered prayers are held within his goodness. It is to believe that no suffering is meaningless, no waiting unnoticed, no hope forgotten. This kind of trust does not come naturally. It is learned, often painfully, through experience. You may wonder why God does not simply explain himself. Why not make the purpose of waiting clear from T? He beginning? But clarity given too early can undermine faith rather than strengthen it. If you knew exactly how everything would turn out, trust would be unnecessary. Faith grows not from certainty but from relationship. It grows when you choose to believe in God's goodness, even when evidence seems scarce. Look closely, and you may see signs of the miracle already present. A resilience you did not know you possessed. A compassion born from shared suffering. A patience that surprises even you. These are not consolation prizes. They are part of the answer. God rarely changes circumstances without first changing the heart that must live within them. The miracle you are waiting for may come suddenly, catching you off guard, making you wonder why you ever doubted. Or it may come gradually, so quietly that only later will you recognize when it began. Either way, it will arrive not as a reward for perfect faith, but as a gift of grace. Grace does not wait for us to be ready. It makes us ready by arriving. Until then, you are invited to live faithfully in the in-between. Not passively, not resigned, but expectantly. Expectation does not mean demanding a timeline. It means remaining open. It means living as though God is trustworthy even when the answer is not yet visible. It means allowing hope to coexist with uncertainty, refusing to let disappointment become your final posture. You may feel weary of encouragement that sounds too easy, too polished, too distant from the weight you carry. But the truth is not that waiting is easy, it is that it is not empty. Every day you endure, every prayer you repeat, every moment you choose not to give up is part of the miracle's approach. You are not standing still, you are being led, even when the path feels like a circle. God does not measure time as you do. What feels endless to you may be brief in the scope of eternity. This does not minimize your pain, but it reframes it. Your suffering is real, but it is not ultimate. Your waiting is heavy, but it is not final. The story is still being written, and the chapter you are in, though difficult, is not the last. When the miracle comes, it will not erase the memory of waiting. Instead, it will illuminate it. You will see how each delay shaped you, how each unanswered prayer redirected you, how each moment of doubt deepened your understanding. You will not look back and see wasted time. You will see groundwork. For now, you are asked to do something both simple and difficult, to remain, to stay faithful where you are, to continue loving, hoping, praying, even when progress feels invisible. This is not a lesser form of faith. It is one of its purest expressions. It says, without fanfare, that God is worthy of trust, not only for what he does, but for who he is. And so you wait, not because you have no choice, but because you believe that waiting itself is held within God's purpose. You wait knowing that miracles are not manufactured by urgency, but received through faith. You wait with questions, with longing, with a heart that sometimes trembles but still hopes. And in this waiting, something holy is happening, something unseen but deliberate, something that is slowly aligning heaven and earth, promise and fulfillment, prayer and answer, even now. Even as you wonder whether anything is changing at all, even as the silence stretches on and the ordinary days continue, even as you wake each morning carrying the same request in your heart, trusting that the God who taught you to hope has not forgotten how to fulfill it. Trusting that the miracle you have been waiting for is not only possible, but promised, and that when it comes, it will arrive not as an interruption, but as the natural completion of all that has been quietly unfolding while you wait. Ed, while you believed, while you endured, while you learned to listen in the silence, and to recognize that even now, in this very moment, the answer is moving toward you, step by step, unseen but certain, drawing nearer in ways you cannot yet measure, preparing not only the circumstances but preparing you, shaping your expectations, steadying your faith, deepening your trust, so that when the miracle finally stands before you, you will be able to recognize it, receive it, and understand that it did not come too late, nor too soon, but precisely at the moment when all that you have become through waiting is finally able to meet it. And even then, when you imagine that moment of recognition, it will not feel like fireworks bursting against the sky so much as a quiet settling of truth inside your chest. You will sense, perhaps for the first time, that nothing was random, nothing accidental, nothing cruelly delayed. The waiting that once felt like abandonment will reveal itself as companionship of a deeper sort, a presence that did not rush ahead of you nor lag behind, but walked with you through every unanswered question. You see, we often speak of miracles as though they are isolated spectacles, bright interruptions in an otherwise ordinary world. But the more closely you look, the more you realize that miracles are woven into the ordinary, not stitched on afterward as decoration. They are concealed in persistence, in quiet obedience, in the daily choice to rise again after disappointment has knocked you flat. God rarely announces his greatest works with trumpets. He prefers the steady rhythm of faithfulness that continues even when applause is absent. The trouble with waiting is that it exposes our inner narratives. When the answer does not arrive, we begin telling ourselves stories, and not all of them are kind. We tell ourselves that we are forgotten, overlooked, unworthy. We assume that silence is a verdict rather than a season. Yet these stories say more about our fears than about God's intentions. The waiting room of faith is a place where false beliefs are brought into the light, where we must decide which voice we will trust when clarity is withheld. There is something profoundly humbling about asking for a miracle and not receiving it immediately. It reminds us that God is not a vending machine, dispensing blessings in exchange for the correct sequence of prayers. He is not impressed by eloquence, nor moved by desperation alone. He responds to hearts, not formulas. And hearts, as it turns out, are best shaped slowly. If God answered every prayer the moment it was spoken, faith would be reduced to transaction. We would learn efficiency but not devotion. We would master technique but never intimacy. Waiting guards the mystery of relationship. It ensures that prayer remains a conversation rather than a demand, an act of trust rather than control. You may have noticed that in the waiting your prayers have grown simpler. At first they were detailed, precise, filled with strategies and conditions. Over time they may have softened into something more honest, more raw. Fewer words, fewer explanations, more surrender. This is not prayer deteriorating, it is prayer becoming real. God is less interested in being informed than in being invited. There are moments in waiting when faith feels less like confidence and more like stubbornness. You cling not because you feel strong, but because letting go would cost you more than holding on. This too is faith. It is not glamorous, not inspiring to watch, but it is deeply powerful. It is the kind of faith that survives storms not by standing tall, but by refusing to be uprooted. We must also confront the uncomfortable truth that some miracles do not arrive in the form we expect. Because the miracle was never meant to preserve the old life intact. Sometimes God answers by dismantling what we hoped would remain unchanged. He removes not because he delights in loss, but because he sees that what we cling to would ultimately limit us. The miracle then is not restoration of what was, but transformation into what could be. This kind of answer can feel like betrayal until time reveals its mercy. We grieve the loss of familiar hopes, only to discover later that they were too small for the future God was preparing. Waiting, in this sense, is not merely about patience, it is about consent. It asks whether we are willing to let God redefine what a miracle looks like. It is tempting to believe that once the miracle arrives, all waiting will cease. But waiting is not a temporary inconvenience in the life of faith, it is a recurring theme. Each answered prayer leads to new hopes, new questions, new seasons of trust. The goal is not to escape waiting, but to learn how to wait well, how to remain open rather than hardened, hopeful rather than cynical. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of waiting is that it cannot be rushed by effort. You can prepare, you can pray, you can act wisely, but you cannot force God's hand. This powerlessness feels unbearable in a world that values control, yet it is precisely here that faith finds its footing. To wait is to acknowledge that some things are beyond your ability to manufacture, and that your role is not to produce miracles, but to receive them. Receiving, however, requires readiness. And readiness is not measured by impatience, but by humility. A humble heart can accept an answer that differs from expectation. A humble heart can recognize grace, even when it arrives disguised as delay. A humble heart can admit that God may know better than it does what will truly heal, truly restore, truly bless. In waiting, you may also discover a new sensitivity to others. Your own longing tunes your ear to the quiet suffering around you. You notice pain you once overlooked, need you once ignored. Compassion grows not from comfort but from shared vulnerability. In this way, waiting expands the heart, making room for love that would otherwise remain dormant. God often uses waiting to shift our focus from outcome to obedience. We become so fixated on the miracle that we neglect the daily faithfulness required of us in the meantime. But obedience in small things is never wasted. It builds a life capable of sustaining larger blessings. The miracle does not replace obedience, it crowns it. There is a peculiar freedom that comes when you stop trying to predict how God will answer. Prediction narrows possibility, trust enlarges it. When you release the need to script the outcome, you make room for surprise. And God, it seems, delights in surprises that reveal his creativity rather than our foresight. You may fear that if you stop striving, you will lose momentum, that faith will fade into passivity. But true surrender is not inactivity, it is alignment. It is choosing to move at God's pace, rather than racing ahead or dragging behind. It is learning the rhythm of grace, which is neither frantic nor stagnant, but purposeful. As the waiting stretches on, it will test not only your faith, but your identity. You may wonder who you are without the miracle you hoped would define you. This question, though painful, is essential. God is less interested in what you possess than in who you are becoming. If the miracle were to arrive too soon, it might become your identity rather than a gift within it. Waiting teaches you to live without guarantees, to love without certainty, to hope without proof. These are not weaknesses, they are signs of spiritual maturity. They reveal a heart that trusts God, not be. Cause outcomes are assured, but because his character is. It is worth remembering that some of the greatest acts of faith recorded in history were carried out by people who never saw the full fulfillment of what they hoped for in their lifetime. Their faith was not validated by immediate results, but by enduring trust. They believed that God's faithfulness extended beyond their personal timelines, that the story was larger than their own chapter. This perspective does not diminish your desire for a miracle. It purifies it. It lifts your gaze from immediate relief to enduring significance. It reminds you that your life is part of a broader tapestry, woven with threads of purpose that extend beyond what you can presently perceive. Waiting also confronts us with our assumptions about fairness. We notice how unevenly blessings seem distributed, and wonder why God answers one person quickly while another waits. Comparison, however, is a poor companion in seasons of faith. It distracts from the personal work God is doing in you and tempts you to measure love by outcomes rather than presence. God's relationship with you is not a replica of his relationship with anyone else. Your path, your timing, your miracles are uniquely shaped by who you are and what you are called to become. What appears as inequality from the outside may be wisdom from a vantage point you cannot yet access. In moments of deep waiting, you may feel tempted to lower your expectations, to stop hoping in order to protect yourself from disappointment. But hope is not the enemy of realism. Despair is. To hope is not to deny the difficulty of waiting, but to insist that difficulty does not have the final word. Hope is an act of quiet rebellion against meaninglessness. God does not ask you to pretend that waiting is easy. He asks you to remain honest within it. Lament, frustration, even anger can coexist. Why? Faith, if they are brought into the relationship, rather than used as reasons to abandon it. God is not threatened by your questions. He welcomes them as signs that you are still engaged. You may have days when trust feels effortless, and others when it feels impossible. Faith is not measured by consistency of emotion, but by consistency of direction. Even when you stumble, if your heart remains turned toward God, you are still moving forward. The miracle you await is not only about what will change around you, but about what is being formed within you. Patience that does not harden into resignation. Strength that does not become pride. Hope that does not depend on immediacy. These are rare qualities, forged almost exclusively in the furnace of waiting. There is also the quiet assurance that waiting will not last forever. Seasons change, not because we demand it, but because change is woven into creation itself. Winter gives way to spring not through effort but through time. In the same way, your waiting has an end, though you cannot yet mark it on a calendar. Until that end arrives, you are invited to live fully, not as someone paused, but as someone becoming. Waiting does not mean your life is on hold. Growth, love, service, joy can all flourish, even while you wait for the answer you desire. In fact, they often flourish because of it. God is not withholding your miracle to test your endurance for sport. He is not indifferent to your longing. He is attentive in ways that do not always translate into immediate relief. His care is not proven by speed, but by faithfulness. And so you continue, day after day, prayer after prayer, hope after hope, trusting that nothing is lost, that nothing is ignored, that nothing is meaningless. You trust that the same God who planted the desire within you understands its fulfillment better than you ever could. You trust that the why ting itself is not a detour but part of the destination. Even now, as time passes and answers remain unseen, something within you is aligning with something beyond you. A miracle does not have to be visible to be in motion. The unseen is often where the most significant work occurs. And though you cannot yet see how all these threads will come together, you remain, you hope, you believe, you walk forward into another ordinary day, carrying an extraordinary trust, convinced that the God who called you to wait will also know precisely when to answer, and that when that moment arrives, it will not feel random or abrupt, but deeply, unmistakably right, as though all the waiting itself had been quietly guiding you toward that very point. moment by moment, breath by breath, faith by faith, even now, even still. And so, when the answer finally arrives, and it will arrive, you will understand that the miracle was never merely the thing you asked for, but the way God carried you to it. You will see that every delayed moment trained your eyes to recognize grace. Every unanswered prayer deepened your trust. Every weary step strengthened your soul. What once felt like silence will reveal itself as guidance. What felt like absence will be known as closeness. And what felt like waiting will be understood as becoming. The miracle will not stand apart from your journey, it will complete it. And in that moment, you will know with a quiet certainty that God did not forget you, did not delay without purpose, did not answer too late, but answered in perfect faithfulness. At the precise moment when your heart, shaped by patience and trust, was finally ready to receive it.